Welcome to Monday Night Live, the weekly training that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth.
So tonight's subject is about rental properties. Doesn't matter if it's a single family home or a 100-unit building. Um, the the calculator I'm going to show you second is the one you really want to learn, and it's definitely more complex than the basic one that I'll show you first. But nonetheless, it's you're going to want to have it, especially if you work with investors. There's even more complex calculators out there. When I took some of the CCI classes, so the one that's on investing. Um, you actually use some college level math, so we're not going to get into that. And those are for much larger projects where they're doing calculations like the future value of current cash flows, things like that. We're interested in cash flow today, and we're also interested in like a 5 year projection and what happens if we sell in 5 years and we take everything into account, capital appreciation, equity pay down, which is paying off your mortgage, depreciation recapture, all those things are within the realm of this group and the training program that we have. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. First things first, let me move all this stuff around here. Okay. Um, just briefly, guys, for everybody who's new or newer to the team or just haven't seen this in a long time, or you're a guest in the class, on the team website, this is my dashboard on the team website. Everybody here that's on the team has this website. If you're not on the team, don't worry about it. I mean, some of the stuff we're allowed to share. We have the rights to source material to be able to share that. Anything that's being sold, like the training programs, that those are restricted. I mean, I've provided most, if not all, the content and created them, but uh, with the arrangement we have with the publisher and editor, um, through Amazon and so forth, I can't legally give those away. I could get in trouble. I can't even sell them. They have to go through the channels. But in any case, nonetheless, most of what I'll show tonight, I'm going to be able to share with you if you want to get copies of these things. So first thing is I want to go back here real quick and show you in the well, let me go back here real quick. Sorry. If you click on training courses, okay, this is the dashboard for the team website. You're going to be taken to a page that shows you all the training programs. I've already clicked on the rental profit training program. You saw the one for flipping. I think that was 2 weeks ago. And there's others out there. Commercial trainings out there, wholesaling, flipping, buying rentals, managing rentals, and of course, investor agent. And if all you did was open these up and look at the subject of the module, you'll find out what that particular module is about. So module one of the rental profits training program is about finding the property. So I'm actually going to show you that tonight. And if you click on module two, you can see what that subject is. Just got to hang on a second till the computer catches up. Okay. Um, Purchasing rental properties, that's that subject. And on down the line there. There's usually additional material that's associated with these things. You always get the written version as well as the video version. And anything that we use in the subject matter we make available as an add-on, like websites for toolbox and so forth. Um, so in any case, I just want to show you that and where that is. If I go back to the dashboard, okay, and you click on training program or training courses, you'll see all six of them from investor agent all the way up to commercial. They're all in there. I have all the modules and all the training programs available to me. What you get when you first sign on is investor agent. Then you have to request the one for flipping or request the one for rental profits. What you want to do is just request one at a time. I know it's going to be tempted to just request them all, but just request one at a time because they actually do track and see when you get logged in, how long you were there, all kinds of stuff. So, and again, I just want to show you that. Now, back here to the let me go back to the All right, here we go. I'm right where I want to be. If you click on the Tools tab, okay, these are the basic calculators and spreadsheets. The top two on the right, the middle one on the top line, and the upper right one on the top line, one says Property Inspection Report, one says Property Rehab Analysis. The property inspection report you use for every single property. Every property you ever go in, you want to take this with you. Okay. Download it. And if you're a real estate agent and you're on the team, or if you're paying through it separately, either way, those are editable. That means you can go in there and edit them to put your name on there, your contact information to hand to your clients. Okay. So it's a way for you to further brand yourself. You don't have to promote me because my role is to help you. Uh, you do that one first. The property rehab form is what you use based on what you find in the inspection report. So we covered those a little bit when we went over flipping a few weeks ago. What I really want to focus on is right down here, cash flow analysis. This is the basic form. All right. Up, click typo can't be reached. Okay, well, that's interesting. Let me go back here. Let me see if this one is available. This is the quick analysis. Whoop, download. Okay, that one
Something
downloaded.
is going on with the internet. I was having the same problem with a couple of other websites today.
Yeah, I've been noticing some odd things too. Well, this one downloaded, but the one I really want to show you guys is right here. So let me download this one. All right, I'm gonna open that up. And by the way, I'm going to actually go back there real quick. And I'm going to try to download the basic one again and see. Nope, same thing. All right. So I'm going to have to, if one of you guys can remind me to notify Ryan, Ryan, REWGW, so he can correct that. But for now, what I want to do is show you this one. So Eric, do you have a property you want to use to plug in here and um, exercise the tool here? You're muted right now.
Yeah, we have a duplex in the town, 2 towns away from us right now. So
Okay. Let me
not
click
not
on.
very exciting, but
No, that'll work.
can get us
So
going.
the first thing we do is always type in the type of property. So you said a duplex.
Yep.
So if you look in the yellow, I just put the word duplex there and address, we'll just say 123 Main. You get the idea that the yellow is editable. You can type in there. Okay. And you can type in uh, the green too. So in any case, what would you say is a good purchase price for that property?
Now or what we paid and when, because it was purchased in 2003 for 150 grand. So
Let's start with that, and then we'll go into where it is today.
yep.
So back then, mortgages. Did you have a mortgage on that one?
The current balance is 75 grand.
Okay, I'm actually going to put that down here. I'm sorry. Do you remember what the original principal balance was?
It was probably 120.
Okay, and I guess 12 payments per year.
Yep. Full 30-year AM. I think the rate it's adjustable, but probably started around where it's at now, which is a little over 6.
Okay, um, fixed
30-year.
amortized for 30 years, and loan term was also 30 years.
Yep.
Okay, and guys, the reason this is important, you can have what's called a balloon payment, where it's amortized over 30 years, just like a mortgage on your own home would be, but you have a term of 20 years. So in 20 years, you got to pay it off. But the reason they do that is you can have a shorter payoff period, but you have a lower payment because you have a longer amortization period. And what happens in 20 years, you've got a balloon payment. You've either got to pay it off, refinance it, or what have you. I'm trying to figure out and get rid of that. Okay, good. The monthly payment would have been $719.46 principal and interest on that. So now if you look, that up here, the 120,000 was put in here, which means you put down, I guess, originally $30,000. And there may have been some additional cost, but we'll just leave that go for now. The key is you put in the purchase price, and you go to the mortgage section, put in the term, the principal balance, number of payments per year, interest rate, amortization period, and loan term. Okay. Now you come down here to the rental section. All right. The, the income. Now there's not going to be a third unit, so we're going to wipe that out there. So there was how many uh let's get rid of that too. Sorry. On the first unit, how many bedrooms and bathrooms in the first unit, Eric?
Two bedroom, one bath.
Okay. And then same thing with the second
Yeah.
unit, or
Yep, effectively.
then what we could do is we could come up here and number units and say two. So it's a duplex with each with two bedrooms and bath. So if we had, let's say we had 4 units, a third unit may have been a 1 bedroom, one bath, and a fourth unit may have been a 3 bedroom, two bath. And you would put one there and one here, and then put in uh, uh, 1 and 3 something like that. Now, do you remember what the rent was when you bought that?
No, but right now it's 975, which is effectively what probably where it started. The condition is the house was built in the 1800s, so and we're planning on knocking it down and turning it into 23 units. So not
Nice.
fixing it up.
Okay. Any other income like a garage?
Nope. That's
Okay,
it.
so as you can see, it calculated for you 975 times two, because that's two rents paying 90.75 each, for a total annual rent of 23,400. So far, is everybody okay so far with this? Okay. Remember, this is being recorded, so if you registered for class, even if you're not here and you're watching this in recorded mode, you get the recording as long as you register for class. Okay. All right, now that's the fun part, the easy part. Now here's the hard part: expenses. This is where the rubber meets the road. I've said this a million times, I'm sure, but in this game, you have to play offense and defense. You have to score points, make money, and you have to play defense to protect your money. Because if you don't, I guarantee you, expenses will creep up on you like a quiet monster. Anybody that's owned rentals will tell you that's an absolute fact. You've got to be a real SOB on expenses. Not cheap. You don't want to be cheap, because if you have remember this, cheap, bad properties, you're going to get cheap, bad tenants. You want a good property that's going to bring in good tenants. Okay. I promise you it'll pay for itself. And okay, so the rents annual right down here in the, where we're going to calculate the net operating income. We repeat the gross revenue, 23,400. Now, right now, guys, vacancy rates are at an all-time low. I don't think you got 3% vacancy rates anywhere in the country. I mean, it's possible, but not likely. So why don't we say vacancy right now is 1%? Does that sound fair, Eric? I mean, maybe we can say
Where we are, it's zero, but that's fine. One will work.
okay. Other income affected by vacancy, that could be something like laundry or something, Effective rental income now is 22,815. And if you have other income not affected by vacancy, so that could be something like you have a city building, on the side of the building, you have one of those big signs, like for Joe's Barbershop or Allstate Insurance. You can do that, and that would be income that's not related to vacancy. So anything like that, Eric?
Nope.
Okay. Um, so effective gross operating income is 22,815. All right. Now this is where the truth really matters a lot. Um, I know in my first years, I would kind of fudge these figures just based on my experience, just guesstimating. You want to get as much accurate information as you can from the previous owner. So if you want to write this down, guys, whenever you buy a rental, every time you want to ask for the last 3 years of Schedule E. And anybody that says, I'm not giving you my tax return, just remind them, I'm not asking for your tax return. I just want Schedule E, which identifies the income and expense for a particular property. You can put 3 properties per form. And it doesn't at all reflect anything else in the rest of the tax return, just the part that's associated with the property. Okay. Um, you also want to ask for what's called a certified rent roll. Rent roll shows a detailed, snapshot month by month, unit by unit, tenant by tenant of all the rents that came in, how much came in, when they came in. So if you have rent, somebody paid you part of the rent on the 5th and part on the 15th, that needs to be on the rent roll separated out like that. The date and the amount for every tenant, every unit, every month. Okay. And you want that for the last 3 years. The reason you want it certified is that's the owner signing, verify that that rent roll is a true and accurate representation of the rent. Because if you ever find out that it's not, a year after you buy the property, you can go to court and sue and win because they falsified a document that they signed, verifying that it was accurate, true and accurate, and you would win hands down. But if you didn't have that, a really good defense attorney would say, well, it's really based on the owner's previous owner's best recollection, to the best of their knowledge. They can't remember everything, and the judge is just going to ask you to settle. So always get a certified rent roll. Okay. And by the way, you also want to get a uh, something identifying any contract on the property for lawn care, snow removal, pest control, things like that. Um, you want to have in lawn. Let's say you have a washer and dryer, commercial washer and dryer in your basement. You let a company enter to place the washer and dryer, and they're going to have a lease with you. They're going to rent your space from you. Well, believe it or not, those leases that those guys have a clause in there that says, should the property be sold, that contract survives transfer of ownership. So they get to stay in the basement, letting the tenants use their washer and dryer. You need to know that because maybe you don't want to pay anybody or have anybody pay you a small pittance to do washer and dryer. Maybe you want to do it on your own. What I'm getting at is some commercial contracts have that clause in there. And if you don't know it, you automatically inherit that contract. So make sure you ask for those things. In any case, back to the main subject. In here, you want to really know what your property taxes are. And I'm going to guess in Connecticut, 600 is probably going to be really low. um, do you recall what it was when you bought it? The annual property taxes?
Probably about half of what it's now, and it's about $400 a month.
Wow. So that's 2,400 for the year. Okay. That's yeah, that's good for that property.
400 a month.
But I mean, back then it would have been,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
and these are all annual, by the way, guys. Okay. So property insurance. And if you're wondering, believe it or not, I was able to get property insurance really inexpensively. And the company was called Farmers Mutual. Okay. It's definitely going to be more expensive now. But also remember this, in the first few properties, I got the more advanced insurance with like rent replacement in case of there was a fire or something like that. I would still get rent from the insurance company while I was being fixed. But later on, after I had 10 units, I dropped all that and only went with called the basic form, which is basic fire and casualty. Doesn't cover, you know, rent loss, doesn't cover a lot of things. But the reason I did that is I just did the math on it and I realized me having a lot of properties was in itself a sort of form of an insurance policy. Because if one unit went bad, I still had dozens and hundreds of other units, up and running and paying. So that's why I went with the basic form after I had a lot of properties. Okay. So in any case, let's just say, what do you think, like 600 for the year? Would that be fair?
Uh, yeah. Well, actually, back then it was probably about 1,000. We're by the water,
Oh yeah, that's going to make a difference. Um,
not in a
now,
flood zone.
yeah, yeah. Now here's something a lot of investors will leave blank. It's management. As they're going to say, well, I'm going to manage it myself. Let's just do a quick hand raise. Who here, um, when they get your first rental property, would like to manage it yourself to save that expense? Because I know I did for several properties. Well, let me tell you, if you keep growing like you should, you're not going to be managing those anymore yourself. You're going to have a manager. Otherwise, you won't get any sleep at night. You know, so you have to have a manager. So what I'm going to tell you is this: even if you self-manage, like in the beginning, I would never talk you out of it. I want you to get the experience. So when you do hire somebody, they're going to know you know what you would expect from them. Okay. What I'm getting at is you want to account for management expense at the on the front end when you buy a property, even if you're going to do it yourself for two reasons. Number one is you acting as a manager is different than you acting as an owner. Your job as an owner is to make a profit. Your job as a manager is to do all the management things, screen tenants, take care of maintenance and repairs. Which one of those two roles is a higher paying job? The owner. Yep. So, and by the way, if you are going to manage, does a manager deserve to get paid? Sure, they do. So you might as well pay yourself a management fee, right? So, Kathy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
There's a mess going on with insurance lately in the residential side. I assume it also rolls over to the commercial side.
Mhm.
Do you know if it does?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not. What is the?
Okay,
If you want to elaborate a
well,
little, yeah.
there's something called a clue report,
Oh yeah. Yep.
and it follows not only the owner, but also the buyers. So if you've had a bunch of claims, or sometimes even not very many, it can cause you to be in a situation where you can't get insurance.
Yep.
Um, and I know it's affecting the residential side. I assume that it's affecting also commercial.
Yeah.
Do you
I would.
know?
I've not heard that, but I would believe 100% that it would absolutely, because
Okay,
insurance companies, at the end of the day, what's on the clue report is the properties. Like if there's a fire, you can look and see if there was place was ever had a fire. Well, you're right. It does actually. They track the owners too, and the people who the claimants, people making claims.
yeah, it's
So,
like 7 years too. It's not, I thought
oh
it
yeah,
was 10, but it's at least 7.
yep. So, and I've had investors tell me they're going to get the full insurance coverage, everything coverage, because they're going to file a claim on everything. And I'm like, I don't know if I would do that. I'm not an insurance guy, but one of my friends was, and he said, if you make too many claims, and they will cancel you. Even if you're actively insured and you file too many claims, they're going to let you go. You know, it's not just trying to get new coverage. You won't even be able to keep the existing coverage if you keep filing claims. So that was another reason why I thought, well, I'm going to just go bare bones, just absolute bare minimum. And I saved a ton of money on premiums, by the way. And I did have a huge house fire one time. I had several houses flooded, but fortunately, those are rare occasions, and the insurance covered all of them. You know, but all the little minor stuff, guys, we had our own crew. We just took care of everything. At one point, I had like 5 crews. So, any case, just that's just my 2 cents worth. But keep in mind, the clue report is very real. It's been around for a while, and if you have a friend in the insurance industry, just ask them, "Hey, would you mind looking up this property on the clue report to see if there was ever any, something serious like a house fire before?" I would absolutely do that before you go and lock in with hard money. You can make your offer, put your hand money down, but before you finalize things, make sure you get. Do not wait till the last week before closing to get insurance. That was another big mistake people made. You don't give those guys enough time to react. You got to give them time. Let them check it out for you. It's free, and you can find out. Hey, that property might have some old structural problems due to an old fire. I've actually had that happen to me, and thankfully the clue report showed that. And the insurance company said we will not inspect. We will not cover it without doing a full inspection and taking walls off to see that the timbers, right, the 2x4s, the studs, and the uh, the rafters and the joist. They wanted to see the entire skeleton of the house, or for the which is a major ordeal because now they got to take down drywall and all kinds of stuff. So the huge hint, Kathy. Thanks for bringing it up. By the way, it is a huge hint. Um, okay, so management. Always put it in there because you deserve to get paid. And if you're not going to do, if even if you are going to do the work yourself and maybe not eventually do it, you're going to have to pay for it anyways. And if you don't account for it on your pro forma up front, later on, then you got to take a hit, like a 5 or 10% hit on your gross rental income. Who wants to do that 3 years down the road? Take a take an expense you didn't plan on. So plan for it up front. Okay. Any case, repair and maintenance, labor, utilities. Most of my units, everything was separate except the water. Water is a municipal lienable item in most places in the country. So you want to make sure you keep the water in your name, even if it's a single family home. Keep the water in your name or the name of the LLC that owns the property, and then invoice your tenants every time a water bill comes in. You pay it, and your tenants pay you, and make it in your lease so it becomes a lease item. It's treated just like rent. Does that make sense, guys? Very important, because if you don't put the water in your name, the water authorities are famous for letting bills go by 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. When you go to sell it or re-rent it, and a new tenant moves in, and you go to get squared up, and you're going to find out the hard way the last guy didn't pay his water bill for 6 months for something. Just do it the way I described, and you won't get in trouble. In any case, you should have some accounting fees unless you do your own taxes, licensing and permits. Sometimes you've got to have an occupancy inspection every time you rent a place out. You've got to advertise vacancies. You have supplies, right? You got lawn care, landscaping, snow removal, all kinds of stuff. So, in any case, at the end of the day, um, Eric, I just put 1388 for water in here, and we can just leave everything else blank. But what you'll see is just a few things we put in came up to $6,768 per year, which is, 500 and say 60 some odd dollars per month expenses. And that is before the mortgage is paid. So that leaves you with 16,398 cash flow, right? Now, on your annual debt service, remember the monthly payment, 719.46 times 12 is 8634, which leaves Eric Reisner a nice, beautiful net positive cash flow of $7,764 per year. Not too shabby on a
Need a few
$150,000
more of
property.
those to retire.
Oh yeah. Well, you need a couple of them. Yeah. But in any case, you can see the cap rate is 10.9%, which is really good these days. Over here, they have a what if scenario. So if you sold it today, you would want to sell it for 163 and 980. That's what they're saying based on these numbers. You know, rent could be higher, but also right now cap rates are lower. So probably where you are, Eric, cap rate of 5 to 7% is probably pretty good right now.
Yeah, so the market value, if it were in good shape, is about 450. It
Wow.
it needs a good 150 of work though. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's it's a it's it's a good cap rate.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it to me. By the way, DCR stands for debt coverage ratio. What banks look for is typically a minimum of 1.2 or 1.25, depending on the bank, and that's in good times. In recession times, that I've seen debt coverage ratios, the requirement from the bank be up to 2%. Okay, that's kind of a big deal. That means you've got to have enough leeway in there to pay your mortgage. Like what they want to know is how much money is left over to pay your mortgage. Remember, your mortgage payment, okay, is 8634 for the year. Your net operating income is 16,398 for the year. So really, and this is where that ratio comes to. You've got enough rent coming in to almost pay 2 years worth of mortgage payments. Okay, that's really important to a bank, and that's if everything goes well. Now, if it was down to 1.2, that means something here, your NOI is going to be lower or your mortgage payment is going to be higher, and you've got less of net operating income left over to cover your mortgage payments. Okay, that's really what DCR stands for. Okay, um, so just keep that in mind. You always want to ask your bank, what's your debt coverage ratio right now? What are you looking for? And they'll tell you 1.2, 1.5, whatever it is. You know. Any case, I want to go over a few more things here because I want to show you something on Really Flow. Up here, we went over the total column. The next column is dollars per square foot. So it the rent coming in. The gross operating income for rent is $14.48 per square foot. Okay. Um, Now, if you go down here a little bit further, we're going to get into the expenses. This is really the really good analysis comes in. This is where you're going to find out how much of your income is being allocated to, you know, different expenses. So there's two columns. There's one column that says percentage of gross operating income. So out of that 23,166, rent of $2,400 is 10.4% of your gross operating income. That's actually a big number. You know, I would never go above 10%. In fact, I try to keep mine to like 5%. It's hard to do. However, I'll give you another tip here. In almost every county in the country, there's a process where you can appeal tax assessments. So you can knock down the how much your property is assessed for tax purposes and save yourself some tax money. And they'll every now and then they'll go in and redo it and reassess, and you got to start all over again. But it's worth it. Okay. Now the next column is percent of operating expenses. So in other words, 35% of your operating expenses is used for property taxes in this example. All right. 14.8%, almost 15% of your gross operating expenses are used up by a property insurance. Okay, and then property management is the next biggest number, 20.4%. So literally, of your operating expenses, your property taxes are more than a third. Management is a fifth. Water is a fifth. Insurance is 15%. Okay, and then go back over as a percentage of your gross revenue. You can see property taxes or 4.3% of your gross operating income. Management's only 6%. So that's about right. I mean, when I have my property management company, we charge anywhere from 5 to 12%, depending on how many units they have with us, if they were using Section 8, whatever it was. Anything that like something like Section 8, we were fine with, but it's more work. It's more paperwork. So you have to charge more to cover the additional expense of having Section 8 tenants. But they were some of my best tenants, by the way. In any case, down here you can see total operating expenses are 29.2% of your gross operating income, right? Which is actually really good. In a lot of cases, particularly with older homes, Eric said this home was an older home. You know, you can see operating expenses easily approaching 50% of your gross revenue, easily. 40 to 50% for the oldest homes. The newest homes, operating expenses are going to be a much smaller percentage. You know, you could go down to 20%, even 10% on single family homes on operating expenses for a brand new home because there should be no expenses, right? I mean, the tenant pays everything. You shouldn't have any maintenance or repairs. You generally have a 10-year warranty on a brand new home. So I know a lot of investors that they focus exclusively on brand new homes. They're more expensive up front, but they have a longer period of time before they have headaches. They generally get better tenants. And at the end of 10 years, you know what they do? They do it for sale by owner and finance the person. How about that? They get income for 10 years. Then they sell it to them when the house is probably worth twice what it was when they first bought it on a note where they're paying maybe 10% on interest, simple interest. And you have your own annuity. You know, that's not a bad strategy. You know, any questions on this calculator, guys? Okay, everybody know where to get it? Go to
So
the
Gary Perot did have a question. It
yeah.
was, are duplexes sold by residential comps rather than cap rate and NOI?
It generally speaking, when you buy something 4 units and less, the right kind of appraisal is going to have fair market value because it's technically residential, and it's also going to give you the income approach to valuation, right? Now, when you get to 5 and above, I'm not saying they won't, 5 units and above, I'm not saying they won't give you a market value, but they will guarantee give you the operating income approach to valuation. Because the higher the number of units, the more the income matters generated from that property, and unless the surrounding area matters. I know it sounds crazy, but that's exactly what it is. Whereas a duplex, you're more likely to find duplexes intermingled with other neighborhoods that are predominantly single family homes, right? You're not going to find too many fourplexes in a bunch of single family homes. You will some, but you will definitely find some duplexes amongst single family homes. Um, so a duplex value is more influenced by the surrounding fair market value than is a 10-unit building. And a 10-unit building, of course, is no influenced by the operating income than the surrounding area. So that's really how that works. So you should always get an appraisal that has those two valuations plus the third one. That's the cost to build new, the replacement cost. And right now that's generally going to be higher than everything. I mean, right now I wouldn't. If somebody said I had a choice between building a brand new 100-unit building and buying an existing 100-unit building, probably in most cases I would buy the existing building, right? Because it's construction right now, I mean, it's the labor, shipping, materials, all that stuff. It is really expensive. You've got to really have deep pockets to do that. So, but I
So
know
I do have a caveat there because I've looked into redeveloping this by also acquiring a property next door, but 23 units using modular, uh, $200 a square foot.
that's
And
great.
the new basically new construction sale price per square foot is 400. I would have to use affordable housing zone code here in Connecticut, so 30% of the units are going to be below market. So the blended for sale price per square foot is $330 a square foot.
Hi, I just want to take a moment to thank you for watching a recording of the Monday Night Live class. Hope you're getting a lot out of it. I'm sure you will. I wanted to let you know that, you can come to Monday Night Live whenever you want, but you can also participate more with the team. Why don't you set up a call with me, a one-on-one strategy call? I can go over everything with you, show you everything that we have to offer. For example, did you know that on our team, not only do you get your leads, we actually give you your own account on our lead gen system. So this puts you in control. You're not waiting on somebody to hand you leads. You get to pick the ones you want. Okay. Huge difference. We have 21 of our own proprietary marketing campaigns. They're all copyright protected. We're the only ones that can use them. Okay. The coaching is absolutely one-on-one. We got 3 coaches. We even have a 4th success coach that we have access to. Okay. One of left fewer than 100 in the world. Okay. One-on-one coaching. Right now the big problem is volume. We need more transactions. We need more inventory. I get it. Well, we know how to get it. Our team actually outproduces the national average by more than 2 to 1. So if you're struggling, don't do that anymore. If you're a solo agent, if you're a team, let's just talk. Smart entrepreneurs are always open to discussion. Learn what we have to offer, and then you can make an informed decision about staying where you are or moving on. You've got to decide, if you're not where you want to be, you've got to take action to get where you want to be. Let's see how we can help you do that. I look forward to talking to you. Click on the link, set up a call. And by the way, I'll see you on the next Monday Night Live.
Awesome. That's really good.
Yep.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've have people telling me they're spending between 400 and 500 a foot now building new
You
construction.
could.
Yep.
You don't have to do that here. Plus, we
Thank
don't have
goodness.
to rebuy the property we already own. So
Well, that's another big. Well, that would definitely change things for me if I already own the property. Heck yeah.
Yep.
Maybe I would build. Okay, guys, if you want to, I'm going to switch over to Really Flow because I want to show you just some basic strategies for identifying properties. So let's go into Really Flow. Again, for anybody that's new or not on the team or you're simply a guest, I'm just going to go into one feature. This is a tool that I bought for the team. We don't own this one. The team platform we developed ourselves over 10 years and about $2 million. This one I purchased, my gosh, it's been about 5 years now. So we're grandfathered in. Anybody on my team gets this for free, and anybody else can pay $100 and get access on a month-to-month basis. But you don't get the, the training programs or the coaching or any of that kind of stuff. So, any case, what I want to do is do a search here. So, would anybody like to actually let's do our hand raise. Who here would like to buy a rental? Like you would love to buy a rental property, duplex, like areas. Okay. Wait, so Eric, give me a good county where you are.
Good one near me. Well, where I am is New London County.
Okay, New London County, Connecticut.
Yes.
By the way, guys, they you no longer have the criteria drop down here. They put everything in the filters tab. All the criteria and the filters are all together in filters tab. So you got 90,783 residential unit property, excuse me, in New London County, Connecticut. So now we're going to narrow that down dramatically. Now, my first and favorite search criteria, right, is almost always, whoops, sorry, way too fast, is almost always going to be what we call the board investor. And if you just hover over the question mark, it says a board investor is someone who doesn't live there, they're absentee owner, and they've owned it more than 10 years. The reason that's important is we know statistically most landlords begin to sell after about 10 years. That's the highest percentage of sales of rental units is after 10 years of ownership. They're just tired. They're worn out. They're burned out. And they're ready to move on. Plus the property's probably double the value. They depreciated it and they're going to go do something else. So I like it for those reasons. So I'm going to start with that. Board investor. All right. Let's see how far down it narrows it. So now we're down to 6,711. All right. So I'm now going to look for properties with vacancies. Okay. So I'm going to circle down here. This will tell you now we're down to 182. Okay. Because remember, landlords do not like vacancies. Now I'm going to add the link with tax activity. And what this is according to the county records, they're behind on property taxes. So I'm going to click on that because I know a landlord has owned it 10 years. It's a rental. They have a vacancy and they're behind on property taxes. Would you guys agree that's more likely to be a motivated seller than somebody that just had a duplex for 2 years, and is not behind on taxes and doesn't have a vacancy? Yeah, so those are the people you want to talk to. Now, I'm going to actually remove that one because it took us all the way down to 13. We're looking for a range of between 20 and 50 records. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to other criteria. Okay. I could put in rental estimates because I want properties that have the highest rent to cost basis ratio. But I'm also going to go here and I'm going to eliminate condos, townhomes, and apartments and only focus on multifamily and single family homes. Most of them are going to be single family homes. In fact, here, I'll just show you. I'm going to eliminate multifamily. Look, 109 of them are single family homes. Okay. Now, here's why I did this. Whoops. I know I can rent or sell a single family home more easily than a 4-unit building. It's easier to sell a single family home than it is to sell a 4-unit building. There's more people that don't want to buy a single family home. So, and I also know if I get tenants with children going to school, they're likely to stay there a long time. So I'm going to have a nice single family home with 3 bedrooms. I'm going to put in 3 here, minimum 3 bedrooms. Let's see how far down that takes us. Okay, now we're down to 74. Now, if you think people with 3-bedroom homes, you think they would like to have a second bathroom? They're not always going to find out, especially in older homes. Most older homes don't have a second bathroom, but let's just see what happens. Probably going to take us way down. Took us down to 51. Remember I said I want to get it to between 20 and 50. I would probably stop at 51 because that's a great number. And I've got 51 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, single family homes. And multifamily. I thought I got rid of Oh, let me get rid of other property types. Sorry, I missed that. Okay, yeah, it's still going to be 51. Now, Eric, I could add things like they have to have a garage, they have to have a basement, things like that. But really, if I had 51 single family homes with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms that had vacancies, the owners owned them more than 10 years, what are my odds, do you think, of actually finding um, a seller out of that group of 51?
50-50.
Yeah, well, that would be great if it was. It's probably actually, here's the truth, guys. It's going to run the gamut of between people who are ready now. That might be 1 or 2 people like, hey, this is so funny. You contacted me now. I've actually thought about this selling this. I was going to remodel it. I don't want to go through all the headaches. It's more expensive to remodel now. I'm tired of tenants. You'll get maybe 1 or 2 of those. But the reality is you're going to get 4 more who are going to say, you know what? I'm always intrigued about what I would sell it for. I'm just not really ready to do it right now. Then you put them on a drip campaign and maintain contact with them. Remember, you've got somebody that spoke with you. You know they've got a property they've owned a long time. It's just a matter of time before they're ready to pull the trigger. And you want to be front of mind. You want to make sure you maintain contact with them. I would set them up on a monthly campaign that sends them single family homes with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms in their area, what's actively listed, what's pending or under contract, and what's sold in the last 90 days. And I would do that every month to remind them what single family homes like theirs are going for. See what I'm saying? So when they're ready, who are they going to call? Well, hopefully they call you. That's not a guarantee, but it's much. If you don't do that, it's a guarantee they're going to go with somebody else. So you definitely want to stay in contact with them. So you raise the probability that you're going to be the one they use to sell their property. Okay. Um, in any case, the other thing too is, you know, I know if I'm a landlord and I'm looking to pick up this property, remember what I said earlier? I know later on I could easily sell this thing way more easily than I can sell a fourplex. In the single family home, I've got people cutting the grass, taking care of everything pretty much, paying all the bills, even though the water's in my name. Remember, I invoiced them, but they pay everything. I should have literally zero to none out of pocket costs. As long as the house is safe, clean, reliable, and up to date, and there's no natural disasters like a tree falling on the house or something like that. Yes, you've got to replace stuff every now and then. Water tanks, furnaces, roofs, carpeting, those things. That's just part of owning the property, guys. And so I'm going to give you another tip here. So please write this down. Um, Whenever you're looking at a rental and you're doing your pro forma, always include a line item. Some people call it cap X, which means capital expenditure. So you have regular maintenance and repairs that you write off as an expense the year you took it, replacing a doorknob, repairing a window, those kind of things. But if you do a major job like a roof, okay, um, generally you depreciate that. It becomes part of the cost basis of the property, and you depreciate it over time like you do the house. Okay, so the bottom line is you're not looking to replace a roof every year, maybe once every 20 years. But let's say you buy a house and the roof is 10 years old, and you know you're going to keep it at least 10 years. You're probably going to want to replace the roof before you sell it. You've got to account for that. And the best way to account for it is to put another $50 a month away in what's called a capital expenditure account. So you build that up, let it accumulate. So you've got the money when you need a water tank. You've got the money when you need a new furnace. You got the money when you need a new roof. You don't have to tap into your reserves, or worse yet, tap into your principal. One of the worst things you can do in life and in business is to go into principal. Never touch principal. Once you earn and accumulate principal, keep it under Fort Knox. Nobody touches that. You don't ever take it out to buy a car or a boat or any kind of thing like that. You can borrow against it, which is a very wise thing to do. Borrow against that, okay? And then because of those loan proceeds are non-taxable. So if you pull principal out of a property, right? You know, or whatever, you sell a property and you keep some of the cash, you don't roll it over. You got to pay tax on that. But if you let's say you refinance, those loan proceeds are not taxable. Okay. So, in any case, bottom line is never touch principal. I know there's all kinds of reasons why you should and excuses. I'm just telling you, you'll thank me in 50 years that you did not touch the principal you accumulated over time. Can I get an amen from anybody in the course? Yep. So I've learned that lesson
Oh,
early
yeah.
in life, you know, and the guy who helped me buy my first property, um, Jim DeMett was his name. That was his American name. His son's name was Socrates, my college roommate. And I couldn't tell you his dad's actual Greek name to save my life right now. But I remember him pounding it into our heads: do not touch principal, do not touch principal. And Sock and I would had jobs. We were making money, and then we were making rent on the property because we rented out the other two rooms. But silly us, we went out and bought a boat, and then we bought a van to tow the boat. you know, so we're dropping money left and right. His dad, I thought he was going to kill us. You know, he said, "You guys don't get it." He said, "You totally missed what I meant. What I meant was, if you're going to borrow to buy another income producing asset, buy another house. Now you have two houses. Use that income to buy the boat and to buy the car, if that's what you want to do." But he said, don't buy boats, because has anybody here ever owned a boat besides me? I've owned three of them.
Does a kayak count?
No, that's good. Kayaks are good. Healthy, clean, they don't burn any fuel. And you tip it over, you just pick it back up again. The motor boats have motors and trailers, and all those things go bad and get rusty, and huge, huge. I mean, lots of fun and very expensive. So, in any case, bottom line is, buy more income producing assets and let the income producing assets buy your toys. Now back to this, guys. I kind of went long on this, but I wanted to show you one potential method of identifying owners who are more likely to be interested in selling. Instead of just sending out all those "I want to buy your house" cards, or "I buy ugly houses" and putting up the bandit signs. I'm not saying they don't work. Everything works. If you work it hard enough, everything's going to work. This just makes it a lot more efficient. So when we contact people now, remember, we're only contacting 51 people. We can handwrite those letters, not the fake kind, the actual handwrite. We can call them up on the phone and have the conversation with them. "Hey, I'm not suggesting you sell if you don't want to, but I'm interested in properties just like yours. I'm an investor." Or, "I have clients like Eric Reisner who are right now looking to buy a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom ranch just like yours in your area. I'm not suggesting you sell if you don't want to, but if you'd like to find out what it would sell for if you did, I can help you do that." And that's the conversation to have. Either you're going to be the person looking or you're representing the person looking. But the bottom line is, we know everything about these properties. Here, I'll show you. Let me click on the properties. Let's just go into one of these. Here's one, 459 North Stonington. So we get the property address, the description, beds, baths, and square feet. Look at the size of that property. Holy smokes.
I've been on that property.
That's amazing. Yep.
It's actually, it was in pre-foreclosure a bunch of years ago, but it's sold.
Wow.
It's a nice property.
Look, you got a neighbor with a pond. That's pretty sweet. So you go down here, you can see what the retail value is, the rental
Look who
value,
the
and the
owner
wholesale
is.
value. J.P. Morgan. Oh yeah. Yep. So that's already taken back in foreclosure then. So in any case, and their address is there must be a local branch in Stonington, unless that's the property address.
No, that's the property address.
There you go. Okay.
They
Single
probably have
family.
a local realtor managing it.
Yep. And we can find out too pretty quickly. Look at property taxes, 5838. Last sale in 94. Daggone, that is rough, man. They lost that property literally after 30 years, and they lost. I bet it was on property taxes. I bet you. You know.
Yep.
So, assessed value, building and sites, heating is oil. Ooh, we need to change that. Construction, and here's all the loan information. Yep. So whoever had it before they were a veteran. They had a Navy Federal Credit Union loan. Then they went to Washington Mutual. And when I was at PNC Bank, we sold our entire loan portfolio to Washington Mutual, our loan business, in fact, in 2002, because we had the numbers. We knew what was going to happen in 2007, 8, 9. We didn't know exactly when. We decided we're not going to wait. We're going to sell the mortgage business at that moment. Thank goodness we did. We were one of the banks that the Obama administration required to buy other banks because we were so healthy.
WAMU went out of business, which is why JP Morgan bought all their notes.
Yeah. And they went out of business because the portfolio they bought from us had a lot of that bad paper in it. And the news was trying to tell people that nobody was listening. Wall Street wasn't listening. Nobody was listening. If you ever get to see that movie, um, The Big Short, it's actually pretty accurate. I would watch it. It's a great movie. Um, in any case, we get the loan history. Um, we get all the deed recording history, right? Going back to probably 94. Let's see. 2009, 2010. Let's go back up. 2000, 87. Here we go. William Purcell. Yep, he probably built it. Yep. Any Federal Savings Bank. Northeast Federal Savings Bank, Bristol Mortgage. So he sold it to Schwetter. Oops, sorry, I gotta go back. In any case, we get all this information, and all this information can be used in your conversation with this owner. Now, I'm pretty sure by now, JP Morgan has this thing listed. Actually, you know what? I
They've
don't
just
think,
got it rented. All the bank owns around here are rented.
well, what I was going to say is if it was listed, we would know it up here because it really flow interfaces with all the MLSs, and they would have picked it up off the MLS and we'd have seen the listing.
Yeah, all this happened over 5 years ago because I met the lady in her house. They got a divorce.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, I want to find out is the size of the lot real quick. Let's
Scroll down a little
see.
more.
8,
13
13
acres.
acres. Here it is, lot size 13.06. Wow. Boy, I'd like to own that. That looks like a nice area too.
North Stonington's a great town, and you got the casino in North Stonington, Foxwoods.
Yep. Wow. Nice and green.
And you go south, you got Long Island Town. So you're up in the woods, and then scroll. Yeah, there it is.
Yep. Yep. So my sister, I think this is Conscience Bay over here.
Yep,
She lives right on Conscience Bay, my oldest sister.
beautiful
We
area.
used to see their place. There's a ferry goes over here somewhere.
Yeah, so uh, I think New London goes over there. So New London is kind of where that
Yep.
river is, right there on the Connecticut side.
Yep. So, any case, guys, I wanted to just show you this to show you how to source your leads for rental properties. I just gave you one example. The key is to experiment with the criteria, do one criteria at a time, see what the numbers are. Then you can see, and in your own mind, kind of be intuitive about which criteria would go well together. In other words, I know board investor that criteria would match well with vacancy as a criteria. I mean, would you agree those two criteria they go hand in hand? You know, I could have chosen other things. And a lot of people want to go for pre-foreclosure and stuff like that. I'm not against it. Just know this. You're going to work a lot harder on a pre-foreclosure than you will on almost any other kind of property. And everybody else is going to be competing for the same thing. I go for the criteria that I know most agents are not even looking for. Most agents are not looking for an investor-owned property 10 years or more with a vacancy. It's not what they're looking for. But I know as an investor, that's a pretty motivating criteria. So I'm going to use it to my advantage. I'm going to go after the investor-owned properties. I can get it listed and sell to an investor, or I get it listed and sell to owner-occupant, or I could buy it myself. So, in any case, that's the agenda for tonight. If you do have questions, please don't be shy. I'm happy to, you know, answer any questions you have. Um, I don't know everything, but if something I don't know, we can always find out. So let me check on the chat box here. Catherine, yes, a duplex is a residential sale. Oh, I see. There was questions about the Aren't duplexes sold by residential comps rather than cap rate and NOI? Yeah, but yes, because of the impact, the influence on the market value of a duplex, because it's such a small number of units and usually in those neighborhoods. But as an investor, you definitely want to use the calculators to calculate the NOI, cap rate, and all that. Um, by the way, I guess I should probably explain this. Um, Cap rate really reflects the property's performance relative to the cap rate in the area. So the area has a uniform, what would be called, we call it a typical cap rate. So like where Michael Grant is, and in College Station, Texas, a cap rate of 5.6% is probably pretty good right now. But let's say you find a property that has a cap rate of 8%. Does that mean it's a really good deal? It could be, but remember, cap rate represents reward and risk. So the higher the cap rate, generally speaking, the less expensive the property, per rental dollar, but the more risk. It might be in a not so good an area of town. It might be a really old property with a lot of deferred maintenance. It might have an area that's got high crime rate, it's a single family home, but it's nowhere near a school. Things like that you have to take into consideration. But cap rate is this. It's the net operating income divided by the purchase price of the house. So in that example we had, let me go back to the spreadsheet. Hang on one second. Okay. If you go down here, cap rate in this example was 10.9%. That's pretty darn good. Back when Eric bought it, that still was a really good cap rate. The cap rates were higher back then. Nowadays that cap rate probably be half of that. And everybody will be happy with it. The cap rate is the net operating income right here divided by the purchase price way up here. So it's going to be NOI of 16,398 divided by 150. That's your cap rate. Cash on cash return, okay, you have to take into consideration the mortgage payment, the principal and interest. So now you're dealing with this 7764. You take that value, that's the net operating income, including principal and interest. Up here, that does not include net operating income, does not include principal and interest payments, just expenses, non-debt expenses. Cash flow includes debt service. So in this case, 7764 is divided by the down payment in this. So cash on cash return is cash in your pocket after everything, including debt, divided by your hard dollars into the property. In this case, $30,000. Okay. So your cash on cash return in this example is probably going to be,
Almost
it's
20,
4.85.
almost 26%.
Exactly. Yep. Which is really good. I mean, I would take that any day of the week. But see, you can manipulate cash on cash return more easily than a cap rate. In other words, you could raise the down payment, you can lower the down payment, you could extend the term to 50 years if you want to have a lower payment. All those things could dramatically affect your cash on cash return. And so let me ask you this question, guys. Between cap rate and cash on cash return, just type in a chat box. Which one do you think investors rely on more? What's more important to them? Cap rate or cash on cash return? Just type in what you think the answer is. Let's see what we get. Okay. So what we got is, yeah, Gary said cash on cash. Dutch said cash and cash. It's cash on cash. So this is what I discovered early on. I was always using cap rate because that's what I was taught. And when I met Robert Kiyosaki, he said, well, cap rate's important. Cap rate is like an indicator or a guide. He said cash on cash return is very property specific. It can be manipulated. And that's where creative purchasing techniques come into place, because while a lot of investors would walk away from a property because a cash on cash return looks too low or cap rate doesn't make sense, a really smart investor will run that property through 10 different scenarios, 20 different scenarios to see how to make it work and manipulate that cash on cash return when I say manipulate, I mean that in a positive way. How can you maximize cash on cash return and make this property work? That's how really good investors work. They'll do the math. They'll do things they won't even tell you. They're not going to tell the seller how they came up with the figure because then their secret's going to get out, their trade secret. But you can learn all that stuff. I mean, it's all in the training. Um, the sixth book, actually called the Massive Passive Cash Flow Method, there's a whole chapter in there on creative purchasing techniques that has 30 different some odd techniques in there. And there's even more. Those are just the basic ones. Um, but in any case, I'm glad we got that part of the discussion there. Hey, Michael McGrand, do you have a question?
Hi, Gary. I posted it in the chat. Do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah, sure.
If if a multifamily owner like a fourplex or an apartment complex, if they don't provide the financials like the Schedule E, their yearly expenses, or even a detailed rent roll for the last 3 years, does that limit the property to cash buyers only?
No, not necessarily. In fact, if you go, let me do something real quick here. Hang on one second. Let me,
The reason why I'm asking, Gary, is with your and my history with the guidance and advice you're giving me, it seems to be more common that my sellers don't have um, the required due diligence. It's just not something that I'm running into. They're not prepared to sell for maximum value.
yeah. Well, and I can tell you this as an investor. I know the guy that you're talking about specifically. I would never buy his property because he's not being forthright. I know he's filing a tax return. He has to because the IRS would be all over him if he wasn't. And on a tax return, what do most investors try to do? Well, they try to maximize the expenses, right, to limit how much cash is going to be taxed. So I know somebody's paying the bills every month. It might not be them, it might be an assistant, but every owner of every property, they have to know what money's going out every month. Because if they weren't paying the electric bill, the water, or the sewage, or anything like that, they'd be shut down. So, so when they say I don't keep track of that stuff, it's just not worth it to me to investigate it as an investor. That's why I always ask for certified rent rolls. I want to know what they're telling me is the truth. Now, having said that, Michael, the other calculator that you can get, I downloaded, is the Opportunity Quick Analysis, and it does allow you to plug in what's called pro forma, which is what you believe the property could perform at, income and expense, and you plug all those values in. Under the actual, you would put in what you actually get from the owner, whether it's right or wrong. You plug it in there. If you don't have it, then that would be blank. Then here's all your what if scenarios. You could put in 4 different what if scenarios, or you could even put in here other properties that you already have information on, so you can compare these properties, compare your pro forma with this property with the actuals of the other properties that you have actual data on. That's why I love this calculator, because it could help you market that property um, more so than you can now, because that owner is not cooperating at all. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And how long has he owned it for, Michael?
He built it from the ground up. He took a raw lot and built it and managed it and everything to get it operational, turnkey. And so occupancy has only been about 7 years. The project started maybe 10 years ago, but occupancy has only been about 7 years.
Yep. So I'm pretty sure in 7 years that guy's paid some water bills, electric bills, gas bills, and tax bills. Because if he hadn't paid his taxes, he wouldn't be owning the property anymore. After 3 years, they're going to clamp down. That's what I'm saying. When somebody tells me that kind of stuff, I, I just I just don't have the patience anymore. You know, he, they're clearly trying to hide something. I do not want to buy any property from anybody that's trying to hide anything. You know, it's too easy to make a mistake out there when there's properties. If you press them with an actual offer, legitimate written offer, hand money, the whole 9 yards, they're typically more incentivized to cooperate and produce information. And I always get it certified because that means if something's not right, I find out later, I go to court and pretty much I'm going to win everywhere, with certified records like that. So, I
Uh,
mean, I'm happy going to the phone with him if you're ever interested. I'm not going to preach to him. I'm just going to say, look, I'm interested, but I'm an investor. You've had to have had paid property taxes, Mr. Whatever his name is. You have to have paid electric bills. How are your electric staying on? Why is your property in showing on the tax rolls is being paid? You can go to the county records and see, what he's paid in property taxes. It'll say if it's behind or not, you know? Um,
Yeah, and I've verified what I could verify. He did release expenses categorized for I think 2023,
mhm.
and then just made the disclaimer 2024 is similar. Um, but I was presenting that scenario because it seems to be common, whether it's a fourplex or an apartment complex.
Mhm.
I've got another question with that, and it's basically okay. So we're under the assumption he's not providing detailed due diligence, so it's not 100% complete what we need. So the next situation is my buyer is a cash buyer, and I'm trying to convey to the seller how important that is because I don't think anybody will underwrite a loan on that property. And Eric and I have talked. He's given me good advice before, and that if the bank won't touch it, it really drops the pool of buyers he has. Therefore, the value to him or the value to the market is much lower. The less eyes that can consider it, the lower the property value is going to be. So he's working against himself. So that said, what minimum due diligence would a bank require to underwrite a loan on a multifamily property?
Oh, they're going to see everything. They're going to want to see Schedule E, rent rolls, and literally detailed expenses. They're going to want to see the guy's actual books, either a printout or an Excel document of however he's doing his bookkeeping. I don't care if it's done in pencil. He's going to have to provide that for any bank of any credibility to do any underwriting. They will never. Banks are in the risk avoidance business, and they know for a fact if somebody's not being forthcoming with the data, they're hiding something, and they're not going to take that risk. So you're right. His market is dramatically limited because most banks wouldn't touch this. They need to have that data to do a proper analysis. You know, um, they'd be if they did, it would be a more a, a private lender who's willing to take risk, and they would charge a much higher rate. You know, uh,
For that, like the tax and expenses, I'm just going to refer to it as accounting data. Does he have to have a CPA sign off on all of that? If he's going to present it, and we
no,
already know, no, okay, so
just him,
okay.
whoever the owner is. Yeah, yeah.
You've explained to us in previous Monday Night Lives of different ways to network with investors, and some of them are in these educational environments like a commercial real estate investment club, a real estate investment club. Um, what you're explaining here regarding due diligence, and it's only the tip of the iceberg on all the due diligence that can be provided, is that almost something that we should try to educate the sellers ahead of time to give them, time to get ready for selling, or does that overwhelm them to bring
Oh
up
no,
that?
you definitely want to. I mean, that's one of the first things you'll do is say, look, you know, it's one thing to sell a duplex, but it's a whole other thing to sell a 12 unit building or 20 or even, I mean, a 100 unit building. At that level, people aren't playing games. If somebody's not going to be forthcoming, they're just going to walk away. They're not even going to they won't even say goodbye, you know? So it definitely is in your best interest to educate the owner that if they really want to sell, they're going to have to come forward with the data, just, I would, I personally would not take a listing if someone was not willing to give me their the data. Because how can I possibly do my job? I mean, I'm trying to represent them, get them the best deal possible. But I know at least the people that I know, the banks and the investors, they're not going to take that kind of a chance. I mean, that's why they have money because they're smart about it. They protect it from people that are trying to hide stuff. You know, so But I would definitely
Uh,
educate them. I would definitely belong to investor clubs. Absolutely. Online, offline. I mean, Kathy just got a client just by doing that, right? I mean, I bet you over time, the majority of my clients came to me through group formats, education, classes, networking meetings, just monthly meetings. Um, oh, here's another one. Not just adventure clubs, but the property management groups. Like there's one called the Apartment Association. They're in most major cities. Apartment Association of New York City, Apartment Association of Chicago, Apartment Association of Pittsburgh. I just went on a whim because I was accumulating properties and I wanted to learn more about what I was doing. And I sat at the table with the oldest guys there because I felt more comfortable. And you know, just why I sat there. But they took me under the wings. One guy in particular, he really helped me learn the ropes. And by the way, I got a lot of business out of that from that apartment association. Apartment, property managers and other big investors belong to those groups. The investor clubs generally attract smaller and newer investors. You'll have some seasoned veterans there, but the apartment associations, you're always going to have the big whales in there. Absolutely. So if you're anywhere now around a big city, look for the local apartment association and pay to join. Go to the dinners. It's I can't even. You'll get 1,000 times return on investment, probably more, 1,000,000. If you do that. Yeah. Yeah.
So Gary, Tom Wall has his hand up. I don't know if he has a question. If he wants to come off mute and ask, he didn't promote himself. So
Okay. All right. Let me see. I've got to stop share here. Hang on 1 second. That last calculator, guys, that's also under the tools tab on the website. Um, yeah, Grid is a good group. They're in Northern Virginia. I know the guy that runs it. I've interviewed him on a podcast, and I met some of his key people. Some of you guys might remember Naya. She does the subject too. She's part of that group. I know a lot of people are part of that group. So Jay, Gary, Jackie. Oh, you said Tom. I'm sorry. Let me go find Tom here. Hey, Tom, I just clicked on the ask to unmute button. If you're still there,
I'm here.
did did you have a question?
No, I must have hit it by accident.
Oh, that's okay. Let's see. Gary's got a question. What was the really flow criterion that identified properties as rentals? Was an investor? Yeah. What it was, Gary? It was board investor. There's also active investor. So a really flow, you got an active investor and board investor. Board investor is what I use because it shows me the people that have owned it 10 years or more. And I know they're more likely to be interested in selling. Active investors, they're still actively accumulating a portfolio for the most part. Um, Gary, do you have Really Flow now? You probably do if you're part of Lou Brown's program.
Uh, I've used it in the past. I don't have it now.
Yeah, it's gotten way better. I
Oh,
mean,
it's a good
dramatic
tool.
improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, just over the last couple of years, I've seen some amazing stuff. Like all the mortgage information, that's all new. I mean, I love looking for assumable mortgages. I mean, FHA, VA, USDA, all three assumable, 100% across the board. And you have to qualify. It's not an unqualified assumption. But look at the market now. Now those mortgages are, 3 to 12 years old. The ones at 3% versus paying 6% or 7% now. Commercial people are paying 8%. You know, I would much rather, and most commercial mortgages are assumable. In fact, most adjustable rate mortgages are actually assumable. People just don't, they just assume that they're not, but they are. So,
What
in any
about
case,
looking for notes using Real Flow? Real Flow, is that something like seller finance notes in paper?
you can look for mortgages that were private mortgages.
Right.
Um, the thing is, I don't know if there's a keyword search for it. Um, you could probably, well, actually, let's just go find out.
Oh,
Let's
thank you.
see. Yeah, no worries. Um, okay, let me reduce that. Let me reduce that. Let me. that. Okay, here we go. Let's go back to list. Filters. So there's active investor there, right to the left of board investor. You can see if our property's been flipped. But let's scroll down to the mortgage information. Mortgage information. And then loan type. Let's look for the word private. Seller take back loan. That could be it right there. Let me just scroll down a little bit further.
That would be one kind for sure.
Yep. So other unknown USDA, VA, standalone, seller take back. So you could click on that and search, and then let's see. Let's see if there's something else we can do here. Estimate a loan balance, mortgage finance type. Loan. That's the last of that category. All inclusive trustee, variable rate, step interest, other multi-loan amounts, balloon. Yeah, so we could use. So what we could do? Let's just play with that for a second. Um, Sometimes it's difficult navigating these
An
things.
all-inclusive trust deed might be it's not really it's paper, but it's that's creative financing that you might have an opportunity to play with as well.
Yeah. Now, why am I not finding FHA purchase money reverse or seller take back? What was the one you just said, Gary?
All-inclusive trust deed, you said?
All inclusive trust deed. Oh, was that down in the other tab?
No, I couldn't see. I'm on my phone right now. I'm switching back to my computer so I can see better. But
Oh,
you said
okay.
it just a minute ago.
All right, so that's property. All right, that's probably under mortgage finance types. There it is, all inclusive trust deed. So now we're gonna have to eliminate some criteria because it didn't find any of those. So let's ownership information.
I'd almost clear everything else out, Gary.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, so let's get rid of all these. Let's add back in all the different property types.
I know I've run searches, and when you look through the loan data, the lender is an LLC. So
Yeah. Let's take out vacancy and board investor. And we might want to just do one at a time, actually, too. Let me do that. Property features, loan type. So I'm going to eliminate all inclusive trust deed first and just go with seller holdback. Now I found 663 of those, Gary. I found 663 of the seller takeback. Now to me, typically seller takeback is usually going to mean 10%, something like that, like something a bank would allow. They'll allow you to get owner financing for 10% as long as you put in 10%. The bank will finance 80, but it could definitely mean 100%. It just doesn't say that. And there's no description for
if
that
you
either. So
click the results, and we can just look at one, and we'll get an idea.
yeah, look here. And scroll down to do property insights, financial insights. Okay. Last sale 80,000 in 2016, mortgage amount, mortgage balance estimate.
Just scroll down to the mortgage section. It should
Yeah.
list it.
Yep. Better lending. Oh, you know what it may have been? It may have been this one here, Corey Green, lender. It's 60,000 back in 2016.
Yeah.
That could be what it found, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it said default next to that, Gary.
Aha. Yep. So any case, refinance original. So I tell you what I would do is I would take that search results and download it into a CSV file. Because when you open it, if it's an Excel spreadsheet, then sort it And then you could look at all this, it'd be column, looking at rows and columns. That would be a lot faster than looking at this one at a time. Just get
Right.
the 666 and then download it like you can do here, and then sort it and scroll through and look for the where the loan amount looks like it's equal to the purchase amount. So
Mhm.
because you want, that's kind of what you want, as versus just 10% owner take back.
Right.
So yeah, that would work.
Gary, thank you so much. I have to go, but this was very informative and enjoyable, and you will see me again.
That sounds good. Well, remember this, Early Flow is $400 a month for the pro version. We've got it here, and anybody though you could just be an investor and just pay $100 a month and get the exact same account that we're looking at now and save $300 a month. So
Great.
yep. But hopefully see you next week in class. We have a broker teaching, and then the week after that, I'm going over wholesaling. So the
Awesome.
19th.
Thanks so much.
Nice to meet you, Gary.
Good to meet you. Take care. Bye.
You too. Let's see. Michael, on an assumable loan, does the buyer have to have the cash to pay the equity between? In most cases, that's what people are going to be looking for, Michael, is if I'm going to buy a $500,000 house and the assumable mortgage is 300,000, the seller's going to want me to give them 200,000. But I could offer them 100,000 if they hold a note for the other 100,000, something like that. Or I could go to my private funds, right? I could borrow against something, another investment I have, or I could go to a private lender and get all or part of that money too. There's a number of ways to skin that cat. If it's an investment property, I could do what's called a rent participation mortgage. I would say, look, I'll assume your 300,000 mortgage. For the other 200,000, I'll pay you 50% of my rent increases over the next 5 years, and in the 5 years, I will pay the remaining balance in cash. I can do that type of thing. There's hundreds of ways I can structure that, but for the most part, most conventional people, they're hoping you're gonna come in with the rest in cash. Just remember that when you're dealing with investors, you got to find out what their motivation is. If they take 200,000 in cash now, they have to pay taxes on that. Okay, if they take it out over time, they can spread out the tax burden. There's all kinds of things you can do. You just have to ask questions and find out, you know, time versus money, what's most important and what's least important and what ratio, you know. Good questions on that, guys. Let's see. How is Deal Machine or Freedom Soft compare? Jay, I haven't used Deal Machine. Freedom Soft I did use. I would say Really Flow is way, way more sophisticated than Freedom Soft. Freedom Soft, I knew that owner too. And it was very rudimentary. Um, and so I found others. Now here's another question from Jay. Oop, let me go back up. There it is. This is a little away from the current topic of discussion. Can someone comment on the following scenario? How would you look at the following scenario? Land appraised, 21 million. Seller distressed and like to sell for 7 million. Oops. Hang on a second here. I'm going to scroll down a little bit more.
Can I explain it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Okay, so here's the scenario. The seller, the land is close to completion of entitlement complete. And because of the family situation with other members, the seller wants to sell the land about 1/3 the price. And what I was thinking, and I've been looking for the buyer, but then couldn't find any. And I thought of a scenario wherein if I offer him if he is willing to give at 1/3 the price, and then I borrow the money from the land, the private lending also, and and owner is also willing to do seller financing along with option to buy back if entitlement doesn't go through. So I'm looking at about 10% down, giving 10% down and remaining seller financed. So I was
Okay.
thinking, and after entitlement, soon after entitlement, which is in another 6 months or so, I can refinance it and repay the lender as well as the seller.
Okay. Well, one big consideration is land in and of itself is one of the more risky loans for a bank to make. In fact, a lot of times they'll never lend you more than 50%, 50 cents on the dollar. So if the land is worth 7 million, they might loan you, 3.5 million. That's historically what banks have done. But you could find potentially a private lender. Um, Now, well, let me ask you this: what is your long-term goal for the land?
So if the way I see it is, if I am able to get it at 1/3 the price, 1/3 the appraised value prior to entitlement, and after entitlement, it's expected or projected to go uh, close to double the current appraisal.
Mhm.
So my thing is like if that's what's going to happen, I borrow money from the private lender collateral with this land, which is definitely and which is 10% of 10% of 1/3 the price. So which is as compared to the value of the land, it is definitely like the money is quite secure. And also immediately after entitlement, I can refinance it to pay the lender the capital and the interest, and also
Okay.
repay the seller.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this: the going from 21 million to 35 million, are you counting on just the entitlement making that happen?
Yes,
Okay. Do you have any
because it's
other?
a mixed use land, and it's supported by city.
Okay. I would, before doing anything, Jay, if you know a banker personally, I would talk to them first. And just this is what I recommend. I used to be a banker. I would go visit, make an appointment, say I have something I want to discuss with you involving a potential uh, land acquisition that could be worth 35 million, and I want to get your advice. This is you telling them. When you go in there, repeat that. So you're looking for them to be, they see that as you coming to them for advice, which bankers really like. They That means they feel like they're a partner in this, and they're more um, motivated to figure out a way to make it work. But one of the big questions would be, in their experience, because they do this all the time. Chase Manhattan. Um, their J.P. Morgan would be good. If are you in New York?
No, I'm from Canada,
Are you in Canada? Okay, whereabouts in Canada?
Toronto.
Okay, I used to live in the Danforth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I live close by that.
yeah. You ever go to
Yeah,
Papa's Grill?
Canadian Danforth.
Yeah. You ever go to Papa's Grill? It's a Greek restaurant, kind of near
Yeah,
the
so
Carrot. Yeah,
that is near my neighborhood.
yeah, absolutely. I love that place. Yeah.
That's
So we have,
Canadian Eglinton.
yeah. So I would go to either, TD Bank or, um, obviously Canada.
Well, I am not looking for Canadian financial institution. I am looking for because the other my counterpart he is from Georgia, Atlanta.
Okay. All right. So you may need somebody like Deutsche Bank or HSBC. An international bank um, is probably what you need then. But I would still talk to them, have the discussion first, and find out in their experience. Um, does that going from would the entitlement in their experience take the value from 21 to 35 million? It may be perfectly good to do that, but I would
Uh,
definitely validate
I
that
do
first.
have some comparables that the seller has provided. There are some big stores like Costco and some other stores who have bought land when it was 2 years ago when the appraisal came at this. So they have bought land which is 700,000 per acre, and they are not a part of this prime location as well.
Okay. Now, are you looking to do this on your own, or do you have a partner? Anybody that you're doing this with, or?
It is me and my counterpart in Georgia,
That's
who is
those two.
very close to the seller, and
Okay.
and that is the reason why the seller is willing to work with him and me, like I am trying to help and structure the deal.
Okay. Um, I mean, what you have written here, it looks like it makes sense. It's reasonable, but because of the dollar amounts and the time frame, like 6 to 9 months, have you ever personally done anything like this with the city of Toronto? Is the property in the city of
It is
Toronto?
right in the it is right in the city. It's not in Canada. It's in US. This property is in US.
Oh,
It is one of the major cities in US,
okay.
and
But it's in the,
it is 5 minutes to 7 minutes close from downtown and 15 minutes away from airport.
okay. All right. Well, a couple things. Barclays Bank is another bank that's really good in the US. They're an international bank and they do lending here. The partner that's in Georgia, if he or she's going to be part of it, like they're going to be, authorized signers along with you,
Mm-hmm.
they may require them to have, you know, I mean, it could be substantial money in reserves that they're going to want to put in the bank. Barclays going to want to see a deposit in Barclays Bank of a certain dollar amount that's a percentage of what you're looking to do here, just to mitigate the risk. Because one of you, are you a Canadian citizen? I mean, do you have
I am
U.S.
Canadian
citizenship?
citizen. I am Canadian citizen. He is
Okay,
US citizen.
so you would still be considered a foreign. I mean, you're foreign national, even in the U.S., even though you're Canada. You're a foreign national, and the Georgian is also a foreign national. Any bank that's going to underwrite this, they are definitely going to want to have a large portion of funds on reserve. That's why I would really,
But this is what I am thinking. See, if the land is available as 1/3 the price, and uh, if the and if I am doing 10% down, which is 0.3% of the current appraised value. So when I am putting it at 0.3%, I am borrowing money from the private lender, and because this is happening in like kind of 6 months period of time, and the appraised value is, even I consider 1.5 times the current appraised value, that also gives close to 30 million. And 30 million, and if I refinance it,
yeah,
I can as well pay the 1/3 the price to the seller, as well as the repay the loan and the interest. And still I have the land with no money down, and I am owning the land, and I don't need any financer after that.
okay. Well,
And and at that point, I can look to wholesale the land.
mhm. I mean, would you just want to resell the land once you have the entitlement, or
I have other ideas of going LPGP structure and partner with the developer. So invite some LP partners so
okay,
that I can be part of the GPP.
okay. Well, I mean, there's some people on the call here, like Eric Reisner's on. He's, he may be able to lend some insight there too, and you know, I just think you should, before doing something like this, I would definitely run it by some people first. Make sure there's an appetite for that. A developer, if you already know a developer, that's great. But if not, we do have contact with big developers, mostly in the U.S. Um, Eric has some, I have some. There's probably other people on the call here too that have some contacts. I think it
Yeah,
would be a really good idea.
Yeah, I'm open to discuss with anyone who will be interested. I
Yeah,
definitely.
big issue will be experience. So if you don't have it, you're gonna have to bring somebody in on a deal like this.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking to go LPGP structure to or partner with someone
Okay.
who brings in that experience.
Yeah, so if you want, Gary can connect us and happy to chat, and we can talk about where geographically it is, and we can narrow down some names.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
If you, Ray, do you have my email address or phone number? I think you did send me something, yeah, to an email before. Here,
Are you asking?
I'll type it in. Hang on one second.
Okay.
Um, oops, sorry, WGW. Because something like this, it definitely merits much more discussion. I mean, to me, on the surface, what you're describing looks reasonable, but the bigger the project, the bigger the risk, and I think it would be really wise to have more discussion and have
And
somebody.
so this is it is the location is good.
Mhm.
It is a city city is kind of interested. This is the final phase of that city development, and
Okay.
it is like one. It is only like 1% of bigger average, only the vertical built up is only given to about 200 acres of land, 10% of what the development is, less than 10% of what the area they are developing.
Interesting. Okay. Um, well, we do have a lot of tools we use to evaluate MSAs. Like we can tell you where in the country, where in the U.S. People are looking to invest
Mm-hmm.
make big projects.
Right.
Certain states, I mean, some of them are really not expected. Like Alabama right now is huge opportunities down there right now. And but Florida gets a lot of exposure. Texas gets exposure. Colorado gets exposure, but Alabama doesn't. But I'll tell you right now, pound for pound, if 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 I had if I had 35 million to invest, I'd be part of it would be definitely going to Alabama, and part of it would be going to Arkansas. You know,
So
and
here is the thing.
Hmm.
Here is the thing. The seller, their family has been owning this land for over 80 years, and he has been the sole trustee. He has been managing, and he is the sole decision maker.
Mhm.
But his other family, if it was for him, he would have retained the entire land for himself. So he is only retaining 50% of the land, and 50% he is selling it off to pay off his
Okay.
family members.
Okay. Interesting.
So, and that's the reason why he is more interested in making this deal happen prior to getting
Yeah.
entitlement. Entitlement is very close to it.
Okay.
And there is an option that he is okay with, um, like for sure the entitlement is going to go through, but if it doesn't happen, he's willing to take it back.
Okay. Um, well, I mean, I don't mean to purposely exclude a state like California, but I do have to tell you um, there are people there who were still there and still invest there and build there, but more than not, more people with that kind of money have been leaving California. It's just, it's just that it's so difficult to build anything there. The political climate, again, I love California. I got family there, but in terms of uh, being a business friendly state, it's probably at the bottom. I mean, I know people personally who've left there and moved to Florida just because of the taxation. So, and the regulations, it's just so much more strict there. It's extremely difficult. But You know what? You find a nice hotel chain like Marriott.
Mm-hmm.
They're not worried about all that. What they're concerned about is can they have the business travelers and the vacation travelers come there and keep the rooms occupied 24/7, and they'll build in any state. That's and hospitals too. Hospitals and hotels are two industry sectors that you know, economic factors and political factors don't matter as much to them because they know they're going to have occupancy. And so, anyways, let's. If I just put my email in the chat box. If you could
Yeah,
email
and
me, let's. Yeah, we'll get a time together. And I can introduce you to people out there too, if you like, if that's where it is, you know. So
yeah, and you have my phone number, and also I'll put my email address.
okay.
So, uh,
Trying to think, I had that before too. 558
yeah,
6. Okay,
yeah.
great discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so and this is zoned for mixed use, mixed commercial use, and also one side is one of it is a perfect square, one of the edges is riverfront.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
And the
Well, guys,
seller is retaining the same amount of land for himself for his personal development.
okay. Okay. Well, if you could, just email me tomorrow or I mean, tomorrow or
Yeah,
Wednesday.
I can email you right after this.
Okay. And then let's get something together with Eric. I'm sorry, was there another question? Thought I heard another voice, but
Yes,
This
yeah,
background
that is it.
okay. Well, Jay, I appreciate you bringing this up. Hopefully, everybody here listening and
Thanks
watching
for
yeah,
scheduling time for it. Thank you so very
you're
much.
welcome.
Appreciate it.
And hope you guys watching got a nice little short education there too. And it's just what's interesting is dealing with duplexes and fourplexes. That's just the beginning of what's possible for everybody here. I'm telling you, I'm living proof of that. I started off with a single family home, a half of a house, like Dutch. That's what my first investment. I didn't even own the whole thing, I owned half of it. But years
Uh,
later, we're dealing with 90 unit apartment complexes and land development stuff like that. You just learn each step of the way. So take these opportunities and learn, take notes, and it's how you make contacts too. Networking, knowing people like Jay and Eric and Dutch. I mean, it's invaluable. You can't put a price tag on it. So
and I have a question. When you refer to board investor, is it same as the tired landlord?
say that again now.
Board investor, is it same as the tired landlord?
Oh yeah, board investor. That's just a term Really Flow came up with an investor who's owned a property 10 years or more, because they know statistically most investors begin to sell after 10 years. That's a statistic. That's why they call it that. But yeah, tired landlord, essentially that's what they're trying to say. Most people who are after 10 years or more, they're tired of the property. They just want to get out and cash out and do something else. So,
Yeah, because this is the first time I came across that term.
yeah. I know first time I saw it, it was confusing because I thought owning investor properties is anything but boring. It's very active. So, well, listen, guys, it's getting pretty late here, and I've got some phone calls to make. But I appreciate your participation, and I really enjoyed this class. I love teaching, and anymore it's just like I teach only once or twice a month. But um, so this is fun. And next week, Dave Kimbrough's coming in. He owns a brokerage, and oh, thanks, Dutch, in Western Utah. I'm sorry, Colorado. And I want you to hear him. He's got a training program he developed for listings. So I want you to hear about this. Then the following Monday, I'll be teaching wholesaling, how we actually wholesale as agents and work with wholesalers. And then the following Monday, we're off because it's Labor Day. I'm not Memorial Day, excuse me. Yep. So listen, you guys, take care of yourselves. God bless you and all your loved ones. And I'll see you next Monday night.
Thank you for watching this episode of Monday Night Live. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.